Hi everybody, this is Woniya from Alone Season 6 and Buckskin Revolution. And it has been about 3 years since my time on Alone, and I wanted to do a follow-up video, part 4 of the series of videos that I did about my body on Alone. I did a series of them, ending with part 3, which was my recovery from Alone, and at that point I filmed it less than a year after my experience there, and I kind of felt like I was done with the recovery, but now here it is 3 years later, and I realized that there's a lot of bits to fill you in on. So, follow up 3 years later. So right now it is July of 2021, and I started on Alone in September of 2018, so a little bit less than 3 years. And when I filmed my last video, the summer of 2019, when Alone was on air, it had been a little bit less than a year, and I felt like my body was back to normal, and I was kind of back to my new post-Alone normal. But now, in the 3 years since then, there's still been a lot of things changing, both in my body and my recovery, and of course in the world, right? We've gone through a pandemic together, and so many people have had to self-isolate. We've had all kinds of shortages. We've had all kinds of fears and worries about whether or not things were ever going to be what we remember as, quote, normal. So my Alone experience and the entire Alone experience now feels both more relevant than ever, and I think that a lot of people have had just enough of a taste to be more interested. When I filmed the videos, I think I was just about back to my normal body weight before Alone, which was right around 130. I was 128 before I went out there, and I definitely came back, and I go into this in the other videos, but my body definitely went through a bunch of different stages of recovery, from putting on weight in really weird ways. Well, first not putting on weight at all and staying skinny for a while, then putting on weight in weird ways, and then having the ways I was putting on weight seem to normalize, but then having some chronic health issues, a really gnarly disease, which honestly kind of felt like it might have been a pre-COVID experience, but this was in 2019, so it was before COVID, so I didn't know to think of it as that or to describe it as that in the videos. And then a lot of lingering issues like weak teeth and a lot of cracks in my teeth and more prone to decay, and then also some chronic cold sores that just wouldn't go away. So one of the things that happens when we go through an intense and physically really difficult experience is we reach all of these plateaus of recovery, right? So I thought after about 9 months that I was totally back to normal. And then another 6 months from that came the like, whoa, what was I thinking? There was still a lot going on in my body. And now is when I'm more normal for sure. And then 6 months from that, looking back and being like, oh, wow. Funny, huh? There was still a lot going on. So now, 3 years later, I would say that it's been about a year and a half of really plateauing and feeling like things truly are stable now and not changing very much. So this seems like a good time to film this because I don't foresee any more changes happening in my body. I think that after 3 years, my recovery is definitely done. I might film another one of these in 2 years and say, what was I thinking back in 2021? So one thing that I want to talk about is the fact that I definitely had a tendency to hold more weight on my frame for a good year and a half after Alone, which really makes sense, right? Because my body needed that safety net. It really wanted to know that it had enough calories for whatever might befall it. And so while our culture has this weird thing about weight, I was really grateful for my body for being able to do what it needed and not being influenced psychologically by all of the weird stuff our culture has, but just holding the amount of weight on my frame that my body needed to feel safe and good and healthy. That said, over time, that has definitely shifted, and now I'm back to just about the same weight that I was before I went, a couple pounds lighter, but also I wear it really different in my body. So my body itself feels really different. And I would say that I am definitely stronger and have more muscle and less fat. So more of that weight is lean muscle. And I feel stronger and better than I did any time before going out there. So I really feel like my body has improved rather than have lasting long-term effects from my experience on Alone. It feels really important too, when I talk about my body and my weight and talk about the ways that it's changed, to address the ways that our culture has this really strange, really unhealthy relationship with weight, right? And the assumption that less weight is always somehow better. And anyone who has gone through an extreme starvation experience can tell you that that is just not the case. There are some people who really don't have as much physical strength if they have a lower body weight. So muscle weighs more than fat. So sometimes we can be, trying to work out a lot and checking our weight and find that we're not losing weight, and in fact that we're putting weight on. And because our culture has this weird thing that weight loss is always good and weight gain isn't, then we can think, oh, that's too bad. Like, what am I doing wrong? When in fact, we're gaining muscle. Muscle is heavy. Muscle is good. So more weight on our frame and more pounds on our body does not mean that we have more fat. Weight and fat and muscle are not the direct correlation that our culture seems to imbue them with. By the same token, having more fat on our bodies is also not necessarily a horrible thing like our culture likes to say that it is. And there are a lot of people who are really healthy and strong and vital even with more fat on their bodies. And we see a lot of traditional cultures where this is particularly true. Fat is adaptive. Fat is a very, very important tool for the human body to make it through periods of scarcity. We evolved to go through periods of feast and famine. And in those situations, those who make more efficient use of calories and who are able to store more of them on their frames are gonna do better in those extreme survival situations. I'm someone who has always been very fit and always very active, and there have been times in my life where I've carried more weight on my body and times when I've carried less weight, but I've been really strong and resilient throughout. And sometimes it is hormonal shifts, sometimes it is environmental factors, sometimes it's what's going on with us emotionally. All of these things actually affect our metabolism and how much weight we retain, how much fat we put onto our bodies based on the same amount of calories that we consume. So there are so many different factors, and again, just really want to look at the actual physiology of our bodies and explode this myth that being skinnier or having less fat or having less weight is always the healthier thing for our bodies. And again, there's nothing like going through an intense survival experience and a time of extreme scarcity of calories to make you really appreciate what a beautiful thing the human body's ability to put on fat is and how important it is to our health and well-being depending on circumstances. We need to rethink the way we talk about health and fitness and such in our culture and recognize that some bodies are healthier with more weight on, some are healthier with less, and often it's somewhere in the middle, and the weight itself is not as important as whether we feel strong and good and capable and feel like we are living into the body that best suits us, and whether we have the energy and the vital force to really meet life with all we've got to give. That said, that feels true of me these days, more true than it has at any other point in my life. So I am 45 and I am definitely stronger and more physically capable. I'm fitter. I definitely have more lean muscle mass to body fat ratio than I have in a lot of my life. And I think that there's a lot of different things going on there. So I want to talk first about some of the things that I think are directly relatable to my time on Alone. And one of those is a really deep cleanse, right? I burned through just about every gram of fat on my body. Besides my brain, I think I kept most of that intact. Our brains are mostly fat. But other than that, what I carried on my frame just about totally burnt up. And most of the environmental toxins in our world are fat soluble. They get stored in our fat. Some of them come into our bodies through fat. So burning up all of my fat was a huge detox for my system. So I think that I have less toxins in my body than I did pre a severe starvation episode on Alone. Another factor is that when we're not eating, our body has the energy and time and wherewithal to actually go in and do these deep cellular repair processes that it's not generally able to do when we're eating food and digesting. And this may be part of some of the reasons why there are regular fasting rituals in a lot of different religions. It's probably partly the spiritual things that happen, which are significant, and partly that cleansing that happens. So digestion is an energetically expensive process. It's hard on our bodies to be just digesting. It takes a lot of work. And so when it's doing that work and engaged in those ways, it's not doing some of these other things like going into our cells and cleaning up all of the junk that's left over in there from other processes, or because it just hasn't had the time to pay attention and clean some of those things out. Aging itself can leave a lot of junk and gunk in our cells. So the process is called autolysis or autolysis, which literally means self-eating. So our cells going in and eating up and using all of that leftover gunk that's left over in our cells. So I think that that is another part of why I actually felt fitter and better in my body in a lot of ways after Alone. So I actually had a lot of pain and a lot of chronic injuries in my body prior to my time on Alone. I started having a lot of shoulder problems when I was in my early 20s. Never really knew what it was about, but I had a hard time lifting my arm above shoulder height. Sometimes I had to have people help dress me because I couldn't get my arms overhead to pull on a sweater by myself. A lot of pain and a lot of disability because of it. Since Alone, I haven't had any shoulder issues. Also, I had had some tendon stuff. My Achilles tendons occasionally would get really tight and uncomfortable to where I had to kind of like walk around on my tiptoes and hobble for my first few steps, especially out of bed in the morning, or if I had been sitting for a long while. Those have cleared up since Alone. Also, I had just random kind of muscle and ligament related things like piriformis syndrome, which is particular muscle in the butt that gets really tight and it can press on the sciatic nerve and cause a lot of pain similar to sciatica. So I had just all of these random things that would occasionally happen and occasionally be disabling for a while. And just about all of those, besides the occasional Achilles flare-up, has cleared up since my time on Alone. And I think that part of that is this autolysis process, but part of it too is learning to be healthier in my movements. I did work with a personal trainer before going on Alone, particularly because I wanted to work on good balance and core strength so that even as I got weaker potentially, that I wouldn't lose the ability to have good recovery time and keep myself upright and avoid accidents and injuries. I was also really focused on strength for being able to pull my bow even after starvation potentially that would really weaken me. So I wanted to make sure that I had really good arm and shoulder and upper body core strength so that no matter what, I wouldn't get too weak to pull my bow. And that was actually the case. I was always able to pull my bow. My aim definitely got a little worse, but I never lost enough strength to pull it, even after months of starvation and losing a third of my body weight. So I think that the strengthening really served me, but the thing that really made a difference is that working with a personal trainer meant that there was someone watching my posture and able to correct me. And while I'd always been a person who was very active and fit and did a lot of yoga and running and high intensity interval training, I was always doing those on my own and didn't have anyone looking and saying, you know, actually your shoulders fall forward when you're doing that, or you're kind of dropping through your core, and if you pull up on your abs, then that will engage all of your body, or you're not using certain muscles as well as you could be. The posture and structural corrections, I think, were a lot of what cleared up some of those long-term issues. I just learned to be in my body in a more functional way. I've shifted the ways that I'm active to doing a lot more strength work, a lot less intense yoga, but still stretching, and doing more high-intensity interval training as opposed to long runs and long bike rides, and really choosing a lot of activities that focus a lot on core strength and multiple muscles and being prone and being up and engaging in the kind of way that I would if I was a wild animal in the environment. And that makes me more well-rounded and less injury prone. But I think perhaps the biggest factor of all is after my time on Alone, really getting to the depth of what it is to be an animal in the world, doing everything you can for your own survival. I came to understand myself and my animal body in a deeper way and really understand the difference between want and need in the body. There are so few people in our culture that really understand a deep need for calories and the significance for every calorie, right? Because in our culture, we use food for entertainment. We use food for celebration. We eat a lot of really unhealthy foods, and mostly we eat more food than we really need because it's our habit to do so. So actually going through a really intense starvation episode showed me what calories really are and the ways that my body is aware of true hunger versus the sensation of hunger that comes just from habit has been really profound and really life-changing. So I will say that I eat a little better than I used to. I probably eat a little bit less because I just understand what I need and what I don't. And another really important factor is that I totally get that I put my body through the ringer. Right? It was an incredibly intense physical experience, and it was a big physical trauma to put my body through. So while I was always interested in and studied and was devoted to health, now I have a much deeper commitment to doing absolutely the best I can by this body, recognizing that it is my sacred vessel that carries me through this life, and knowing that I asked a lot of it, and it really gave, and it really showed me the depth of my capacity, and now it's really important to me to give back to it and to just in every way treat it as well as I can so that it is as healthy for as long as possible as it can be. So I'm more conscientious with my diet. I definitely do more bone broths and, organic vegetables. I always did organic vegetables, but I'm just much more vigilant about such things. Less carbs, less processed oils, basically a lot less of the things that we all know are not the greatest for us. And it's made a huge difference, not just in how I feel in my body, but my level of energy and my level of empowerment and love for myself and my body. So it has been so huge in so many ways. And the bottom line is that I think because I listened to my body, and I chose to leave my time on Alone before I actually started to really, really tank, I was able to actually have my experience on Alone be a positive rather than a negative thing for my body. That isn't true for everyone who's been on Alone. There are people who have chronic issues from it, who it's really affected their health, their digestion in a variety of ways. So I am not saying that a deep starvation experience and putting your body through intense physical rigors is good for everyone or good for most people, but there are ways that we can hold it and have it inform the way we live the rest of our life that for me have made it what feels to me a real benefit. So the conclusion, part 4 of my body on Alone, is that I feel healthier and better off for my Alone experience, and I feel stronger and fitter and more vital in my body than I ever have. More so than in my 20s, more so in my 30s. So 3 years out, here I am, and it's awesome. I am still so grateful every day for my experience on Alone and all of the things it has given me on so many different levels. So thank you everyone for watching. I am now doing online courses, and they cover things like connection practices, like survival, like long-term wilderness living, ancestral skills, and handcrafts. So check it out on my website, Buckskin Revolution. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and consider supporting me on Patreon. I really enjoy filming my YouTube videos to share with you all. Also, it is a lot of time and energy, and because I don't devote my life to YouTube and because I don't force you to watch the ads, it brings in barely any income. So it is not supporting me, but what makes it all possible for me are my Patreon members. So I have a Patreon membership, and I also have an online community where folks talk about skills, where they talk about nature connection, where they share projects and give feedback, and where we have regular Zoom calls. So those are all ways, joining the Buckskin Revolution online community and joining me on Patreon, those are ways that you can help support all of the teaching that I do and help make it actually possible for me to do it. Links at the end of this video and on my website, www.buckskinrevolution.com. Thanks, enjoy.